Hey, welcome back to my program. We've been in the middle of so much confrontation here in this past week, particularly in my home of Baton Rouge, where we had a shooting by a police officer of someone selling CDs on the street. And so the tension is so building. And look, you and I could talk for hours about the pros and the cons and the things that work and the things that don't work. But there's a few facts I think we ought to try to agree on. First of all, every year the police confront thousands and thousands of suspects without someone being killed. Most police officers do their job. You and I each know police officers. Having been in public life for a long time, I know lots of police officers. They don't get up in the morning with the idea of going out and shooting someone. But there's a variety of issues that create some tensions. We have many smaller police communities that have underpaid police officers and no doubt need more training about how you respond in a crisis. That's the thing that so many of us can't really understand. You're there and someone says there's a gun and you're afraid for your life. How do you respond to something like that? I'm not justifying any outright killing or aren't that strain of facts. But as these facts come out, we often learn different things. We found that true in Ferguson, Missouri with Michael Brown, who was saying, hands up, don't shoot, when the FBI and the Justice Department determined that was not the case. This guy was someone who'd robbed a convenience store. He was a local thug, and the officer was not charged. So there are a variety of nuances that we all have to deal with. And I saw in the paper that a number of congressmen are saying it's important that we respond now and show that we get it. Well, I'm not sure how you define get it. I think there's certainly a role to play in terms of training officers as to how to react in an emergency situation. We've seen this in the movies, in the Clint Eastwood movies, where they go from room to room and shoot either the innocent victim or the perpetrator. I don't know how you build in the empathy factor for police officers. Like I say, most of the police officers I know are very caring individuals. I do think there's an obligation to those of us who are parents to do, or who have extended family, to discuss the situation, particularly the what if scenario. If you got caught in a situation like that, I have several of my kids who've lost their tempers and confronted police and gotten arrested for it. They're family members around the country. And in the learning experience of discussing it, we discussed several things. First of all, if you're in the dangerous situation, it's at night, and a police officer says, put your hands down or lay on the ground, you better do that. If you think that you are unjustly accused, or if your child thinks they are unjustly accused, they've got some remedies. They can go get a lawyer. They can sue the city. They can protest. They can contact the NAACP. They can protest in front of the governor's mansion. But in the heat of the moment, it doesn't make any sense to confront that officer and get into a massive argument, particularly at the end of a long day. The officer is tired, and there's no justification for roughing up the person, but it's late at night. He's a little leery. He's scared. And in the case of Baton Rouge, for example, the report came out that a man was waving a gun in front of a convenience store. You're a police officer going to that situation. Now, we got a guy with a gun. So I don't want to lose my life. We better be very cautious about what we do, and we should be on the alert. Now, the Baton Rouge situation is yet to play out. The officer says the man was reaching for his gun. If he can prove that, that's pretty good justification for his self-defense. If he can't, then maybe that crosses the line. Those are the things that need to come out over a period of time. We had protesters within hours after the shooting demand that the mayor resign and that the FBI come in immediately. And well, there is a process in this country of investigating. And so jumping to conclusions probably doesn't make much good sense. But going back to the confrontation with your child, I just don't see what you gain by encouraging them to confront the situation head on. I got into a lively discussion with a state representative in Baton Rouge this week on a radio show. He said, we've been told to get along and to follow orders, and all our lives have been told to do that. Well, those that did it have their lives. They're allowed to fight another day. They're around to fight another day. In the case of the Baton Rouge subject, he's not around to fight. He might have been in the right, but his protest, his fighting, his having a gun made a huge difference. I've not really followed that Minnesota situation very well. I know that a fellow was killed up in Minneapolis. That's our home location for my radio program at Genesis Communications. I broadcast by satellite out of Minneapolis. And so I'm deeply concerned over a city, a wonderful city that has very calm racial relations. The fellow that was pulled over apparently had been pulled over 42 other times for a variety of issues. I've never seen any racial profiling that I've heard of in Minneapolis. So then the guy's got a gun. You know, if you're carrying a gun and you wave the gun, or you the police officer sees that gun, man, if you got a gun, and I'm for Second Amendment rights, but take the gun and put it over in the seat. Don't be holding that gun as a police officer in the dead of night who's Larry anyway comes up to you. Bad things are going to happen. Now, again, I'm not saying that you just kowtow to the over exertion or the overreaction. If you think you've been overreacted to, if you think you're in the right, there are ways to deal with that. As I said, you can get a lawyer, file a lawsuit, maybe get some money, do any number of things. But in the heat of the moment, I think it is highly irresponsible of someone to confront the police officer in a very aggressive manner, swinging and hitting and screaming and hollering. Again, you want to live to fight another day. And several of these fellows who've been killed in these recent confrontations, those who defended them said they were in the right and the police officer never should have acted like that, are not here to live another day. That's the focus of my column. That was last week's column. I think by the time you see this, you can go back to previous columns on the website and you can find that column I wrote about this very issue. I hope it calms down. I hope there's stronger police training. I think good chiefs of police will do that, but it's a two-way street. How you respond to a difficult situation, to a confrontational situation, unfortunately, may be a decision factor in whether you live or die. We don't want that to happen. I'll be right back.